Hi guys. This is going to be the first video I've done in a while, so if I'm a bit wooden, sorry about that. Me and my brothers, I don't know how many of you will watching this will remember me and my brothers' old videos that we made private. But yeah, we this is me, Harry, one of the three marketeers. There's a video that I did years ago on this channel that you can see that I've put public again. I did 5 trading tips that actually, looking back on it, I was quite proud of. But I was quite young and new to trading back then, and I still am. But I've gotten better, and I've learned a lot online. I've been trading as a hobby for a while now, and uh, recently found myself. I consider myself very lucky for what's happened with crypto. I don't believe there's a lot of intellect in what I did there. I just took small portions of money, what was small to me, and have had the luxury of watching it grow over lockdown whilst continuing to work. But I've been looking at ways I can invest wiser, looking towards people like Warren Buffett, Pershing Square Holdings, and stuff like that. And how do they invest? Is there some form of logic to investing? Which, of course, there is, but sometimes it feels as though it's just gambling. And so, yeah, basically, what I've been looking at is intrinsic value. That's the thing that I find most interesting, the thing that makes sense to me the most. And simple ways of calculating that. And that is what has led me to Cineworld. And so I've done this on a few stocks, and I've created this sort of intrinsic value calculator on Google Sheets. And I've been playing around with it. Some of these numbers might have been tweaked by me just because I don't feel the actual numbers, truly represent what I'm trying to put across here. But I could do a whole video on intrinsic value. But essentially, these are the cash from operations. So this is how much cash Cineworld get every single year based on ticket sales, and then subtracting the cost of paying employees. But then they also have to spend money on buildings, leases, investments. And so this is what is spent here. So this is all the other sort of costs that come with running the Cineworld business. And this intrinsic value calculator doesn't just work for Cineworld; it works for all businesses. And this is, I don't know how Warren Buffett probably goes into a lot more detail, breaking down every individual purchase and stuff like that of stocks. Potentially, I don't know. But this is year on year how much they spend on investments, and so from that you can work out how much growth Cineworld has been having every year. And you can see in 2011 they grew. This is how much free cash flow they had every year. So it's not actually the size of their business, but it's how much free cash they had at the end of each year, and watching how that grows. And that is apparently, according to Buffett, he also looks at equity, but according to him, this is one of the simplest ways of valuing a business. And so it's really interesting to see that in the first year they grew by 20%, the next year they grew by 20%, the next year they grew by 40%, the next year they stayed the same, but you can see that they invested a lot that year. So they stayed at 1%, then the next year 2.27%. Then there's a dip here in growth. And just trying to see what happened there. Not exactly sure, but there's a bit of a dip here. But not every company, not anyone can have perfect years. Then it goes up again, 8%. Then it goes up massively in 2018, and then once again it goes up an enormous amount in 2019. So if you're wondering where I got this data from, the site is QuickFS. So go to quickfs.net. It pulls data from other sites. And so what you can do is you can go to QuickFS, and then once you create an account, which you don't have to pay for, you then go to cash flow statement. And this is where I get the data from. So I take this cash from operations here, and I'm not sure why it doesn't do a free cash flow generator for you, but then you can look at basically what they're spending here, property, plant, and equipment. And you can see here, which might be a concern to some people, that their property, plant, and equipment went up 367 in the trailing 12 months. So that's a massive uptick. And actually, they gained extra money on property, plant, and equipment. I'm still new to this, so I'm not exactly sure how that worked. But the main concern is sort of this number here. This sort of people talk about Cineworld having a lot of debt, and actually, they've just acquired in 2018 this company, Regal. So yeah, that happened in 2018. Makes sense. That's why that's there. So that is why Cineworld has debt. But if you ignore that, because the income that came from this acquisition in 2019 led to them having essentially more than double their cash from operations. So the cash minus what it costs for them to operate, they doubled. So this isn't sort of, this is a gross profit. This is just the cash that they've got to spend on buildings and investments and acquisitions. So they've spent it on acquisitions. And actually, if you go to their balance sheet, you can see that their long-term debt, which is where you'd expect an acquisition to show up, is here. This is their standard long-term debt mixed in with their acquisition long-term debt. That went down in 2019 by 400 million. So they are very good at paying off their debt. They have a history of that, which is why I've read that they've remortgaged over lockdown and have gotten much better deals on this debt that they've already got. So actually, they had a lot of debt going into lockdown, which they were prepared for. But because of lockdown, the interest on that debt is much, 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 much lower. So their cost from operations, their operational cost in 2020, remember that they also made some money in 2020, so they would have gotten some of this back, but their cash flow statement, what they would have spent, changing working capital, changing stock-based compensation, depreciation, amortization, these things that would be taken out of their net income, they are pennies in relation to this acquisition. Cineworld have said in a statement that they can afford to run their operations for a year without making a penny. They are an incredible business. And actually, so I don't know specifically where the best place to get data on shorting is, but I'm told that that Cineworld is one of the most heavily shorted stocks in the UK. So one of the things that comes with that is the shorters, the people that hold the actual short positions, because obviously you are probably a retail investor, can close your shorts at any time. The people that actually hold the shorts can't. The people that actually not manipulate, but they do this. They manipulate the market. The people that actually control the markets and the prices, they're still holding their shorts. But basically what this means is Cineworld have a typical annual growth of 1.4%. They are not in competition with Netflix. They are not in competition because they're a different service. They both do films, but one is going, it's like, does Glastonbury compete with Spotify? No, it does not. Spotify, if anything, makes people connected with more artists and makes them want to go to Glastonbury more. And that's how I see Cineworld. Netflix, Apple, and Disney Plus make people more passionate about movies, and they still want to take their kids there for these big events. And all these filmmakers get a great deal of money, and they really appreciate the cinema as well. So Cineworld is in an incredible position, and clearly, without any help, they are growing massively. They're doing very, very well. So in 2021, they're going to have a good year. But what we're going to see, I think, from their earnings is they're fine right now. They are in no trouble. They are not going to have to remortgage. They're not going to go. They're not at any risk of going bankrupt. So what the intrinsic value calculator does is this is how people should be valuing stocks anyway. Essentially, you want to be getting a profit on your stocks, so you work out, okay, if they had the amount of free cash which they have today, and it grew the way it typically does, how much free cash flow would they have in 10 years' time? So I had to massively discount this because I can't imagine, which they've done this for 10 years, so they could well do this, but their average growth is around 1.69, which is, that's insane. That's insane. That's, you'd be happy if Apple did that. So, and that's because of their really smart acquisitions. They have not much to spend money on. I think they must own a lot of their buildings anyway. So if they were to do that, by the time that, what you can do is you can compound that, and I've discounted 1.69 by 1.55, so I'll work that out quickly. I should be able to work it out off the top of my head, but I'm not going to embarrass myself that way. I'm just going to embarrass myself this way. So yeah, 14% annual returns, which is still amazing. So that's still high in my opinion, but it's massively stunting their typical growth. And so, that leaves them with, in 10 years' time, their 165 million in free cash would be 369 million. You imagine all the other things would have grown around it to make it equate to that 369 million. That's why it's sort of indicative. But then you think, okay, in 10 years' time, I'm going to be able to sell it as if it's going to continually grow that free cash flow for another 10 years. So, and just as we are buying it today, presuming it will make money over the next 10 years, people will be able to do that. So what you do is you take the last figure, you times it by 10. And that then leaves you with, and then what you do is you discount that. So you take that and, God, what did I do to it? I added all these figures together, and then I divided it by 1,000. Oh yeah, because I had the billion value and I wanted to get it into the. I had the million value and I wanted to get it into the billion value. So once you add your free cash flow that you've generated for 10 years and the value of the business, massively discounted for what you would be able to sell it over for the next 10 years, because by that point it would have had 20 years of decent growth, so you'd probably be able to sell it for more. They are worth 6.7 billion today. They just should be. Their intrinsic value should be 6.7 billion to you as someone that's going to hold for a very long time. And yet their current market cap at the time of me making this graph was 1.5 billion. And I can look at their market cap on here, overview. Their market cap is 1.5 billion still. On Cineworld, on eToro, you can see it here, their market cap. They actually put their market cap lower. I don't know which one is more up to date. It looks like it's eToro in this instance. And so, yeah, that means that the margin of safety is is 0.22. The margin of safety is the intrinsic value divided. So the company, the market cap divided by the intrinsic value. You want that to be the lowest number possible, and for me, a good value is 0.5. And so in this instance, we have 0.22, which is incredible. And so I actually expect Cineworld in the coming years, the earnings released, I'm hoping, will cause the stock's value to go down. I'm actually holding back at the moment. And so what I'm thinking is I bought myself some just in case that the earnings causes it to go up. But I am thinking, like, what I'm excited for is if the earnings cause people to back out even more and the price to go down even more, I will, of course, buy more of Cineworld. So that's my theory at the moment. And I'm just working this calculator out. I'm not pouring all my money into this. I'm taking a large but sensible gamble on it, because I really have a lot of faith in it. They just seem to be a business that is growing. Their cash flow is great. This price seems like a bargain relative to others. I am considering talking about other similar companies that I'm looking at. Greg's, for example, Ted Baker, Facebook. You have to use different formulas for each because some of them have been shrinking in recent years. Facebook, obviously not. But yeah, if you guys are interested, if you enjoyed this video and you're interested in learning more about how I value stocks, I'd be happy to talk more about it.